There are things your grandparents did every single day in Canada that would get you arrested, fined, or sued into bankruptcy if you tried them now. Activities that were completely normal in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s are now criminal offenses, regulatory violations, or civil liability nightmares. The country changed so drastically that everyday life from 50 years ago would be illegal in 2025. Here are 16 things that were standard Canadian life that you absolutely cannot do today without facing serious legal consequences. 1. Smoking everywhere. Literally everywhere. Your grandfather smoked in hospitals while visiting newborns. Doctors smoked in examination rooms while seeing patients. Teachers smoked in classrooms between lessons. Office workers smoked at their desks. Pilots smoked in cockpits during flights. People smoked in grocery stores, movie theaters, and elevators. There were ashtrays bolted to the armrests in buses. The Non-Smokers' Health Act of 1988 started federal restrictions. Provinces banned smoking in all enclosed public spaces and workplaces. Today, you can't smoke within 9 meters of doorways, windows, or air intakes in most provinces. Smoking in a car with minors present is illegal and carries fines up to $250. Some cities banned smoking in outdoor patios, parks, and beaches. Fines range from $100 to $5,000, depending on province and violation type. Business owners who allow smoking face fines up to $10,000. If you lit a cigarette in a hospital today, security would remove you and you'd be charged with trespassing and violating health regulations. 2. Letting kids ride in cars without seat belts or any restraints. 6 kids piled in the back seat with no seat belts. Toddlers sat on mom's lap in the front seat. Babies were held in arms during highway drives. Kids stood up in the back of station wagons. Nobody thought twice about it because seatbelts were optional and child seats didn't exist for most cars. Canadian seatbelt laws became mandatory in the 1970s to 1980s depending on province. Child car seat laws followed in the 1980s. Today, children must be in appropriate car seats or booster seats until they're 145 centimeters tall or 12 years old depending on province. Fines of $200, $1,000 per child improperly restrained. If a child is injured in an accident while unrestrained, he'll face criminal charges for criminal negligence causing bodily harm, up to 10 years in prison. Child Protective Services can also investigate and remove children from your custody for endangerment. 3. Burning trash in your backyard. Every household had a burn barrel. You threw all your garbage, plastic, paper, food waste, whatever, into a 55-gallon drum and lit it on fire. Toxic black smoke billowed into the neighborhood. Nobody cared. It was how you disposed of trash. Municipal bylaws across Canada banned open burning in residential areas starting in the 1980s to 1990s. Environmental Protection Acts prohibit burning materials that release toxic emissions. You can't burn plastic, rubber, treated wood, or household waste anywhere in Canada. Fines start at $500 and go up to $50,000 for repeat offenders or large burns. If your fire spreads to neighboring property, you're liable for all damages plus potential arson charges. If someone suffers respiratory issues from your smoke, you face personal injury lawsuits. Some cities send fire departments to extinguish illegal burns and charge you for the service, $1,000 plus per call. 4. Hitting other people's kids. If a neighbor's kid misbehaved on your property, you disciplined them. You'd smack their hand, give them a swat on the backside, or grab them by the arm and march them home. The neighbor would thank you for correcting their child's behavior. Teachers used straps and rulers to hit students who disrupted class. Coaches physically corrected athletes. This was considered normal discipline. Section 43 of the Criminal Code still allows reasonable physical correction by parents, but reasonable has been narrowly defined by courts to exclude hitting with objects, hitting teenagers, hitting in anger, or causing injury. Teachers lost the legal right to use corporal punishment in all provinces by 2004. Any adult hitting someone else's child is assault. If you hit a neighbor's kid today, you're charged with assault. Conviction carries up to 5 years in prison. Child Protective Services investigates immediately. You'll face civil lawsuits from the parents. If you're a teacher or coach, you're fired, lose your professional license, and face criminal charges. Your career is over. 5. Driving drunk and everyone knowing it was normal. Dad had a few beers at the bar and drove home. Everyone did it. Police pulled you over, smelled alcohol, and told you to drive carefully. Getting a DUI was embarrassing, but not career-ending. People regularly drove after drinking at parties, sports games, or dinner. It was socially acceptable as long as you weren't too drunk. But enforcement and penalties were minimal until the 1980s to 1990s. Mad Bust against drunk driving campaigns pushed for harsher laws. Today, Canada has some of the strictest DUI laws in the world. Blood alcohol limit is 0.05% in most provinces, lower than the 0.08% criminal threshold. Roadside suspensions happen immediately. First offense, immediate 90-day license suspension. Vehicle impoundment for 30 days, $1,000 fine. Mandatory ignition interlock device for 1 year. $1, 500 plus in legal fees, and insurance rates triple for 7 years. Total cost, $10,000, $15,000 minimum. Criminal DUI over 0.08%, up to 10 years in prison. Permanent criminal record, can't enter the U.S., and professional licenses revoked. The social stigma is career-destroying. Your life is effectively over. 6. Building whatever you want on your property. Want to add a room to your house? Grab some lumber and build it. Want a shed? Build it wherever. Want to knock down a wall? Grab a sledgehammer. No permits, no inspections, no asking permission. Your property, your rules. Building codes became standardized nationally in the 1980s to 1990s. Municipalities require permits for any structural changes. Additions, decks, sheds over a certain size, electrical work, and plumbing modifications. Zoning bylaws restrict what you can build and where. Building without permits results in stop work orders and fines of $500, $5,000 per violation. You must tear down unpermitted structures at your own cost. When you try to sell the house, unpermitted work kills the sale or forces you to pay for complete removal and rebuilding to code, tens of thousands of dollars. Insurance companies deny claims for damage to unpermitted structures. You lose equity in your property and face massive financial losses. 7. Employing your 12-year-old full-time and your business kids, worked in family businesses, farms, shops, restaurants, starting at age 10, 12. Evenings during school year. Nobody questioned it. Kids needed to learn work ethic. Child labor was normal in family enterprises. Provincial Employment Standards Acts set minimum working ages, typically 14 MIG, 16 depending on type of work, and restrict hours for minors. Under 15-year-olds can't work during school hours. Under 18-year-olds can't work past 11 p.m. on school nights. Hazardous work is prohibited for minors. Employing children illegally results in fines up to $50,000 per violation. Ministry of Labor shuts down your business. Child Protective Services investigates for exploitation. You face criminal charges for child endangerment. The business loses licenses and permits. Customers boycott you. The PR disaster destroys your reputation permanently. Drain old oil into a pan, pour it down the storm drain. Problem solved. Some people dumped it in their backyard or in the woods. Motor oil disposal wasn't regulated. You just got rid of it, however was convenient. 1 liter of motor oil contaminates 1 million liters of water. Dumping oil is environmental contamination with severe penalties. Fines start at $5,000 for individuals, but to $4 million for corporations. Criminal charges under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act carry prison sentences up to 5 years. You're liable for complete environmental remediation costs. Cleanup can cost $100, 00 plus. Property contaminated by oil becomes worthless and unsellable. Your financial life is destroyed. 9. Not wearing bicycle helmets. Kids rode bikes everywhere with no helmets. Nobody wore helmets. Helmets were for professional cyclists, not kids riding to school. Head injuries happened regularly, but were considered part of childhood. Walk it off, was the medical advice. Provincial laws require bicycle helmets for minors, under 16 past 18 depending on province. Some provinces require helmets for all ages. The laws started in the 1990s after traumatic brain injury research showed helmets reduced death risk by 60%. Fines of $25, $100 per violation depending on province. More importantly, if your child is injured while not wearing a helmet, you face civil liability and potential criminal negligence charges. Insurance companies can deny claims for helmetless injuries. Child Protective Services can investigate for neglect. The legal exposure is massive. 10. Paying employees cash under the table hire. Someone to work in your shop. Pay them cash. No tax forms, no CRA reporting, no deductions. And criminal charges for tax evasion up to 5 years in prison and unlimited fines. Employees can sue for unpaid benefits, vacation pay, and overtime under employment standards. You face workers' compensation violations with fines up to $100,000. Professional licenses are revoked. The business is shut down. Your life savings are seized to pay debts and penalties. 11. Throwing anything you want in the trash. Everything went in the garbage. Batteries, electronics, paint cans, chemicals, appliances, all thrown in the trash and sent to the landfill. Nobody separated waste. Recycling didn't exist for most households until the 1980s to 1990s. Provincial waste management laws require separation of hazardous waste, electronics, batteries, and recyclables. Landfills can't accept hazardous materials. E-waste disposal is regulated under extended producer responsibility programs. Municipal fines for improper waste disposal, $100, $1,000 per violation. If hazardous waste causes environmental contamination, you're personally liable for cleanup costs. $50, 000 plus. Repeat offenders face criminal charges under Environmental Protection Acts. Municipalities can refuse garbage collection entirely, leaving you with no waste service. 12. Addresses, phone numbers, and did whatever they wanted with it. Sell it to mailing lists. Share it with partners. Use it for marketing, without consent. No privacy policies, no consent forms, no data protection. The Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, PIBAT of 2000, requires businesses to obtain consent for collecting, using, or disclosing personal information. Businesses must have privacy policies, allow customers to access their data, and protect data from breaches. Privacy Commissioner investigations result in compliance orders and public embarrassment. Data breaches require notification of all affected individuals and can trigger class action lawsuits worth millions. PIPED violations carry fines up to $100,000 per violation. Business reputation is destroyed. Customers flee and the company collapses. 13. Selling unpasteurized milk. Farmers sold raw milk directly to consumers. No pasteurization. People drank it, made cheese with it, fed it to kids. It was considered healthier and fresher than store-bought milk. Small dairies operated entirely on raw milk sales. The Food and Drugs Act prohibits selling raw milk for human consumption. Pasteurization is mandatory for commercial dairy sales. Raw milk can contain E. coli, salmonella, and listeria, all potentially fatal. Selling raw milk is a criminal offense. fines up to $250,000, and prison sentences up to 3 years. If someone gets sick from your milk, you face criminal negligence and civil lawsuits worth millions. Your farm is shut down. All livestock is quarantined. Your dairy license is permanently revoked. You'll never operate a food business again. 14. Advertising cigarettes and alcohol to children. Cigarette commercials featured doctors recommending specific brands. Cartoon mascots sold cigarettes. Joe Camel was designed to appeal to kids. Alcohol ads featured children playing while parents drank beer. Magazines marketed to teens contained full-page cigarette ads. Nobody saw a problem. The Tobacco Act of 1997 banned all tobacco advertising, sponsorships, and promotions. Packaging must be plain with graphic health warnings covering 75% of the package. Alcohol advertising is restricted from content appealing to minors. Tobacco advertising violations, fines up to $500,000 for individuals, $1.5 million for corporations, and up to 2 years in prison. Alcohol advertising violations result in regulatory penalties, license suspensions, and massive civil liability if minors are harmed. Marketing firms involved are sued into bankruptcy. 15. Not having any employee safety standards. Factories operated with exposed machinery, no safety guards, and minimal protective equipment. No harnesses and no fall protection. Workers died regularly in industrial accidents. Companies paid small settlements to families and continued operations unchanged. Provincial occupational health and safety acts require comprehensive safety programs, training, protective equipment, and regular inspections. Employers must maintain safe workplaces and provide all necessary safety equipment at no cost to workers. Safety violations result in stop work orders and fines up to $1.5 million per violation. If a worker is injured or killed, companies face criminal charges under Bill C-45, Westray Law, up to life imprisonment for executives, and unlimited fines. Civil lawsuits cost millions. Insurance becomes unaffordable. The company shuts down. Want to clear-cut a forest? Start cutting. Want to dam a stream? Dam it. No environmental studies. No impact assessments. No public consultation. Progress meant building whatever, wherever. The Canadian Environmental Assessment Act requires environmental reviews for any major project. Mining, forestry, infrastructure, energy. Projects must assess impacts on wildlife, water, air quality, and indigenous lands. Public consultation is mandatory. Starting projects without environmental approval results in immediate court injunctions stopping all work. Fines up to $6 million and prison sentences up to 5 years for proceeding without approval. Legal challenges from environmental groups and indigenous communities delay projects for years and cost tens of millions in legal fees. Projects can be canceled after millions invested. Financial losses are catastrophic. Why everything changed. Every single thing on this list was normal, then became illegal, regulated, or actionable within 40 years. The transformation happened gradually, one law at a time, one regulation at a time, until everyday activities from the 1960s to 70s became criminal or civilly actionable by the 2020s. Why the change? 3 forces: scientific evidence showing harm, smoking, drunk driving, pollution, advocacy groups, pushing for protection, MAID, environmental organizations, labor unions, and litigation creating liability exposure, personal injury lawsuits, class actions, wrongful death suits. The result is modern Canada. Safer, cleaner, more regulated, and far less free to do whatever you want. Your grandparents lived in a country where personal freedom meant accepting risk. You live in a country where reducing risk means eliminating freedom. Whether that's progress or overreach depends on your perspective. But one thing is certain, the Canada of 50 years ago is gone. Try living like they did, and you'll end up in court, in jail, or financially destroyed. The everyday life they took for granted is now comprehensively illegal.